Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special edition of Secrets of the Sire. This is Secrets of the Sire streaming. This is YouTube only, so it's going to be pretty exciting. I am your host, Michael Dolce, and as always, joined by my co-host, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
It's not evening.
It's not?
No.
Yes, it is.
Very clearly evidenced by the sunlight drenching my.
Well, I'll say
my
welcome,
profile.
ladies and gentlemen. How's that? I'll say welcome, and that's what we're going to do from now on. So, we're talking True Detective.
Good evening is a fine intro. It's a fine intro. Excuse me. I know. Let's not go against hundreds of years of broadcast protocol.
As long as that works for you, that's good.
Yeah, it works. It's fine.
All right, so
radio approves.
So we want to give a True Detective overview. Season 3 just wrapped up last night. This is something that it's just something we're fans of. We're fans of the show, and we're fans of this particular season. So we wanted to kind of give it some light of day. It doesn't quite fit the scheme of our usual Wednesday night 8 p.m. Eastern shows, which is Secrets of the Sire, talking comics, movies, TV, and pop culture. It's sort of pop culture, so that's why it's in the orbit, but it's not exactly a planet that we would devote much time to, especially considering this particular week. We have Oscar recap with Deadpool co-creator Fabian Nicieza. So again, tune in 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube /Secrets of the Sire. All right, Mr. Hassan.
Wonderful uses of metaphors, by the way. Very smooth, very stylistic. I approve.
I'm professional.
Wonderful.
What can I say?
Oh yeah.
It's less.
I have no argument.
Less beard, more professional. I don't know how. It's just that's just the way it goes. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, that's just strange how that happens. The more sober you are, the more coherent you are. That's great. We figured that out.
Yeah.
We figured out another life hack.
It's amazing.
Thanks to Secrets of the Sire.
It's amazing. All right. So I'm gonna ask you two questions, Hassan. I'm gonna ask you two questions for True Detective, right? So season 3. What did you think of the season as a whole? And then what did you think of last night's finale?
Wow, that's interesting. Season as a whole, I think, is excellent.
Yeah,
I would give it an excellent. I think it was a return to form, not a return to form from season 1, which it's another excellent story. I think the season 1 was kind of strange because you're watching the show and you're slowly seeing it unfold into this really powerful drama, almost a psychedelic drama, like this really powerful, intertwined, in-depth drama. And so it was a kind of a phenomenon. It's mixed results. Some people love it, some people disliked it. But it's general consensus. Season 1 was really good, really.
That was great.
Out of a clear blue sky kind of
right.
situation. And season 2 wasn't, and we won't have to get too deeply into that. So season 3 was viewed with a lot of skepticism.
Sure.
As it was coming into being, and the first episode, the first 2 episodes for me, because they showed them both together. As a movie, like as a double feature.
Right.
And those 2 first episodes solidified it for me. I'm like, you know what? If they actually manage to pull all 8 episodes off like this is going to be a significant piece of entertainment art.
See, it's funny you say that, though.
Form.
It's funny you say that. The first episode of season 3, I was so uninterested, partially because of how bad season 2 was, and very rarely do shows that sunk to the level that season 2 got to ever regain, close to that form. And it started out slow, and it really was kind of a little bit redundant.
Yeah, you have an issue with slow stuff. I don't.
Well, really, I think there's just so many hours in the day, and I have true questions here. That's the whole thing.
Show's fault.
No, I get it, but I'm just saying I have true questions because I'm sitting there saying, okay, am I just going to sit here and is this going to be a season 2 disaster? So that first episode, not a bad episode, just took a while for me to get through, but they got to the end. I thought that ending was enough to get me. Okay, I'll watch episode 2, and then from episode 2 on, they're just rolling. And then it was like, okay, no, this is
Did you
awesome.
watch them? Did you watch those 2 episodes when they aired?
No, I watched them on playback.
That's why.
I watched them on playback.
That's why. I watched them when they aired, So I'm sitting. I sit for the first one, and the first one is like the first 2 episodes were aired as a movie. So I was like, even
Right.
if it was a little slow, I look at the time. I'm like, well, I got an hour left, so obviously, it's gonna pick itself up, or
right.
Something's gonna happen in a 2-hour period. But anyway, you asked me. So that's kind of how I'm rolling it out. That's how I felt about overall the season was excellent.
And the reason I asked you 2 separate questions here, though, because I have a hunch, have a feeling that you were not a fan of last night's season finale.
I'm not a fan of it. It's not a flaw in the storytelling. It's a flaw in the thriller mystery construct. The revelation of whatever mystery can never live up to the hype of the build up to what the mystery is. That's been my experience. Some people have a different experience, but I've seen a bunch of, I've read, even those are even worse too. I've read some great, unbelievable mysteries and some, wonderful procedurals where they're, tearing the mystery apart, piece by piece, uncovering, peeling an onion, uncovering layer by layer. Then you get to the end, and you're like, oh, the guy was an alien. Right? So it's not. It doesn't really have anything to do with True Detective in and of itself, because I do believe they stuck the landing. As I was, I think we had a conversation about it earlier, and I said if they stick the landing, it'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
It's just that when they revealed it, and it also seemed it felt very conciliatory. It felt like the writer. Oh boy, I don't usually like to get into the head of the author. It felt like the writer really wanted to end things where everything was all right, and all the way down to the point where you have that almost Star Wars ending where everybody's standing on the podium with their medals,
Whoa!
And the scenery fades, and the music starts playing, and you're like, all right, that's more of a. There's more congeniality than I've been.
It gave a little bit of a Watchmen ending. This spoiler time, spoilers for everybody, in case you have not seen last night's episode, which I don't know why you'd be watching this if you didn't. The season finale. I gave a little bit of a Watchmen ending. The book landing in the, and this is what Watchmen's ending was. The diary. Rorschach's journals ending up at the newspaper, with the son kind of like holding on to the address, and maybe he'll end up kind of redeeming the family name, or not that Purple Haze's family was really disgraced in any of this. I mean, he just basically got a desk job. That was the extent of his disgrace, and he even got to kind of redeem himself too with the documentary all throughout
in the 90s. Well,
so
he got to redeem himself twice.
Right.
He would have been able to redeem himself 3 times if he had been able to stop being so stubborn about his wife, and read her book.
Right.
Actually, but that's one of the things that kind of bugged me. It really didn't bug me about the show. The show is about this particular character. It's a flaw in the character.
Right, exactly, right.
Stubbornness was a defined flaw.
Yeah.
But sometimes watching it unfold just gets on your nerves. Like, come on, dude. Just
right.
Stop being such a dude. And I don't mean that as an anti-male thing, but
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, it was a lot of times where his machismo, it wasn't really masculinity, his ego just got in the way of his intellect. And, because obviously he was a smart man, was very troubled. He was a very troubled person.
Sure.
He was a loner. So I don't think he was equipped to deal with his attraction to his wife
Right.
when it happened. So that was one of the things that were. And he actually said that. He said, meeting her, he was fine before he met her, and then he kind of started to feel vulnerable,
Right.
because of her, and that messed his head up, and then messed his job up.
Sure.
And then on top of it, there's this like murder mystery that was proving very stubborn and very difficult to solve.
Yeah.
And then there was a racial, aspect to it, to all of it. And I think it was, I think he did really well under the circumstances.
What about the actual murder mystery for a second? Because that's the only part where and look, we spoke before the episode aired this week, and I said, look, no matter what, I feel like the mystery itself, the revelation that it was Purple Haze and his partner actually killing Roland, actually killing Harris, and so when they bring that up in the breadcrumbs of an investigation when they're doing the documentary, I think there's definitely something great there, because now all of a sudden you sit there and you're like, oh, you thought this was part of the conspiracy. It is part of the conspiracy, but you're literally sitting in front of the guy who had a hand in murdering this man. So that to me was the big revelation. However, I know the ending. The whole episode felt like an epilogue to me, and that's unfortunate, right? Because you do have this thing where it's building up with the Hoyts and look, we got a Yondu sighting at the end. That was pretty good, right?
Yes.
But you're sitting
Michael
there going
Rooker.
like, well, I'm in the dark.
I was in the kitchen.
Right.
I was in my kitchen when he came on screen. I'm like, oh my God, that's Michael Rooker. I could just tell from his voice.
Oh yeah.
Did he just roll? Did Michael Rooker just show up out of?
Yeah, Michael Rooker. He's just there. He is. There's Yondu. All right, he's okay, guys. Hey, Guardians fans, he's okay.
Yes, Mary Poppins.
But it's it felt like an epilogue, and not only that, the conclusion to the mystery. To be honest with you, I thought he had set up a few things that I guess in a way I like being surprised they didn't end up coming true. When the father went on the air in 90 and was like, "Come home, baby," blah blah blah, we miss you, and all this other stuff, and she she calls in and basically kind of convicts him in a sense accidentally by saying like, who's this man pretending to be my father? I thought that the district attorney the whole time, there was something going on with him, and I thought he was connected in some way, shape, or form to everything that was going on, and I thought his guilt was going to be what the big murder reveal was. So even if the wife, did have this psychosis and did, miss the daughter, and if 21 Jump Street in his, in his younger state had obviously, you saw that, right? I mean, it was good stuff.
Yeah, I know Stephen Williams, but I refer to him as he's X from the X-Files. He was always.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
A very strong character.
Storied career. Storied career. Good to see him. Good to see him working. But
sad to see him old. Oh man, I'm so sad to see so many people I grew up with old.
It doesn't get easy.
Old.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. No. It does not get any easier. But no, all this stuff, and it's like, okay, even if I thought there was going to be an extra layer, and I guess the extra layer is that it turned out to be a happy ending. But I thought that extra layer was going to be that they ultimately, the district attorney was kind of orchestrating everything, because it was like two quick cover-ups both times. And I guess it was just for a political win, but it seems so hollow that he wasn't working, or at least it was never revealed that he was working with the Hoyts to cover this up the entire time.
Yeah,
because
but there was a cop who covered up her accident. She had a car accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the cop covered it up. And so when they stole the kid and the mother sold the daughter off, basically, I thought that the district attorney was a cop that covered it up, or at least a chief. The chief was a cop, and they were in cahoots together. And they just, they just kept things quiet to allow the illusion to continue.
Right.
And the one thing they kind of left as a total mystery was the father finds the room where his daughter. I don't know if his daughter was still there.
Right. Who killed him?
because she had. Yeah, that's the
That's a good
mystery
point.
they left out. I mean, obviously, he got killed. Didn't he get killed by the guy who they killed?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah, Harris.
Okay, so I mean that kind of clears that up. That kind of ties that loose end up. At least that guy didn't get away with
Right.
murder. But they never got to the bottom of the fact that the father was murdered.
Right.
Didn't commit suicide. But I guess that was irrelevant. I guess that's something for the audience to know and not for them to know.
Right. Yeah, and there's just something about that's a little disconcerting. Because I guess
that they didn't solve that mystery.
No, I mean, look, we know the answers. I mean, everything was, again, this season 3, episode 8 felt like an epilogue to me rather than a conclusion, or not. Yeah, I think the conclusion was all, but there was
totally. Well, I agree with that.
But there was stuff that was set up the entire time where it could have hammered home. Now, my overall feeling on the whole season 2, though, again, or season 3, I should say, season as well. Strong overall, though. I mean, just hugely. Can we talk about how great the cast was? Mahershala Ali.
No.
He is.
I don't want to talk about how great.
I'm going to tell you right now. He is like.
It was a big night for him.
But that's what I'm saying in the
night.
context of the Oscars too. He's Tom Hanks right now. He's Tom Hanks circa 94 to 90.
Ooh, that's strong.
6, I want to say. But look at everything he's doing.
Yeah,
TV. Look, Tom Hanks was a TV star before he was a movie star. He also TV holds so much more value.
He was doing a lot of comedies, but then, then he just kind of broke into drama.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere with
Philadelphia.
Oh, what was his first Oscar? Philadelphia, was that his first Oscar?
Yeah. It was Philadelphia, and then it was Forrest Gump after that. And then he had that amazing turn in Saving Private Ryan, I think. Was Saving Private Ryan 95 or 97? I want to say it was 97. Maybe it was 96. Could even have been. It might even have been 98.
97.
It might even have been 98, for all we know.
I don't think it was 98. I think it was 97.
Okay. But, here's the thing, right? Like, he had such an amazing, run back there where he just, every role he took over, it wasn't just like Tom Hanks in this role. Like, now, that's the next stage for Mahershala Ali.
Yeah.
It's like,
to play it himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially, right. You're now watching Tom Hanks be somebody, and now you're going to watch Mahershala be somebody, as opposed to just
Nicholson.
Being somebody.
Like
right.
When Jack Nicholson takes a role, he's just basically like, oh, that's so and so if he was Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, because like you see scenes of him in Green Book.
Yeah.
And he's a completely different person in that. And then you see him in this, and you're like, oh my god. And then you watch him in Moonlight. And then you watch him in like Luke Cage too, where you're like, he's playing this like badass villain, and you're like, okay, this guy's got range.
He was the good villain until they replaced him.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm sure Luke Cage regrets that now.
Right.
That was seen as one of the drawbacks of season 1.
Yes. And it was awful too, season 1. There's another drawback to it, right?
Yeah, that it was awful.
So ultimately, you have all these elements. You have Stephen Dorff, who's amazing in this as well too. Just in general, the wife was very well played because she could have been cliched. She could have been this like cliched like woman antagonist, but she's not, and it's really a story of him discovering love within himself thanks to her, and there's a lot of value to that, and how she draws that out of him. There's never a point where I'm sitting there going, these people have no chemistry, this makes no sense as to why this is happening. There's never a point in the story, thanks to her performance, where I'm not buying what's going on. I might not agree with it. Like you said, it might be a character flaw, but at no point am I pulled out because of the acting, because of the writing, and because of the portrayals on both characters' parts, or both actors' parts.
I think what's amazing about that show, the two things are profoundly amazing about that show that have nothing to do with the mystery, because like we described, the mystery is pretty mundane. When you get to the bottom of it, it's like, oh, okay, well, all right, I guess that makes sense. the oh boy, and it sucks to even bring these things up. It perfectly encapsulates the oddity of male and female relationships, um, and the fact that sometimes they're not cut and dry. They're not like, well, we're in love, so we agree with everything that the
Right.
other is doing, and we work in tandem with one another. It's like there's an obvious attraction to the two of them, and sometimes attractions between two people are circumstantially based.
Right.
Like they get together because they're the two people that experience the same thing at the same time,
Right.
and therefore and it's obviously there's love and there's a connection there, but it's not easily defined. So the two of them were constantly, gut checking each other,
Right.
to make sure, to make sure that their bonds were as solid as they suspected one. Neither of them really wanted to come out of the relationship looking like the idiot.
Right.
And that's very real for a lot of relationships.
Right.
I mean, I've seen, those are more often than not, those are the things that keep people together or tear
Right.
people apart.
Right.
Not these this mutual admiration they have for each other. And then they also did race relations really well between two people.
Sure.
Obviously, Stephen Dorff was not part of Hayes' problem, but they also did a good job not to white knight him. He wasn't part of his solution either.
Right.
So they tried to protect each other as friends and as colleagues, but Stephen Dorff didn't make any attempt to apologize for the social circumstance
Right.
of the day.
Right.
Which is very important. That makes him not the white savior. That kind of saves him from being, a one note kind of, moralistic everyman.
Right. Right.
But he's also sympathetic because it's not his fault that things are fucked up.
Right.
And he's doing the best he can. Yeah, well, it's YouTube. He's doing the best he can for the circumstance, right? He's doing the best he can for the two of them, for their relationship and for their job, for their as co-workers. So there's that, and then there's Marisalah's ability to deal with it, and like in the early '80s version of himself, after he's just come home from Vietnam,
Yeah.
he's got his personality so well compartmentalized that he's kind of insulated from a lot of the social iniquities.
Right.
He doesn't really seem to care about any of that stuff. He doesn't seem to care about the racial divide. He doesn't care about the benign neglect that he's getting from his supervisors.
Right.
He doesn't give a shit about that. And then as soon as he meets this woman and starts to open himself up, he starts to almost lose his grip.
Sure.
On being able to block a lot of that stuff out. It's very fascinating character study. The way the story was done. I think the true trick of that season was that it wasn't really about the case they were working on. It was about these three people. It's about
and that was the ultimate lesson of the finale, right? I mean, that's essentially what the finale was trying to get across there.
Did I read correctly? And I mean read in the fact that did I read the signs correctly? That Stephen Dorff was dealing with a latent homosexuality? Did I read that right? Because it seemed I got that kind of vibe. Not for, between him and the father, and the fact that he had a wife or he had a girlfriend that kind of just disappeared. That was that relationship was kind of. It wasn't dismissed. It was very obvious that she wasn't around anymore, but they didn't really go into it. And then he goes into these biker bars to get into these fights with people.
Well, no, he got into the bike. To me, the biker bar scene was him trying to overcome the guilt of having killed Harris Barnes. That, to me, was he just wanted someone to hit him, and he wanted to feel this pain. I don't think it had anything to do with homosexuality in that case. To me, that's what I thought. That was my take at the end there. It had nothing to do with him trying to exercise these demons. It was,
well, I don't know if I meant it. I mean, it just there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
I think he's also, working on his rage against Hayes for breaking up their partnership.
Right.
Because I think that had happened just before that. Where he took the desk job.
That was in the 80s. Yeah, that was in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I think, is when that biker bar scene was, because you could tell from the hair.
Okay. Yeah, the Steven Dorff was harder to place because his hairstyle was virtually identical.
So here's the thing.
That was a neat way to tell which time zone you were in by the way their hair was and the cars they were driving.
Right.
And so sometimes Steven Dorff, his hair was a little longer in the 80s. So sometimes you got a little. When he was with Maricela, you could tell because Maricela had a afro.
Yeah.
So you could tell it was the 80s, and then he had the flat top in the 90s.
Right.
And Steven Dorff walked with a limp. So there were a couple of things that you could tell, but sometimes when they were driving, you couldn't tell. Like, all right, where are we now? Where are we supposed to be?
So
Still
real
wasn't
quick,
as confusing as Westworld season 2 though. Still was masterfully done in comparison to Westworld season 2.
Season 2. Look, that sequel's the tough one. All right, real quick before we wrap up here, I want you to wrap your head around this. In reading about the season, apparently, the creator Nick Papagiorno. I'm not gonna even try to attempt to get his name right.
Myrtle. You're not going to myrtle the name?
I'm not going to. Nick Papagiorno had originally envisioned Purple Haze's character as a white man, had offered Steven Dorff's role to him, and Mahershala said, no, I would like to take on this role and instead, and then he kind of showed pictures of his grandfather as a state trooper and how much, the uniform meant to him and how much this role would mean to him, and Nick took that, ran with it. He tweaked it, apparently. They said that, it wasn't anything that was blatantly changed, but there was obviously a lot of the stuff with the race relations got flipped around a little bit. I'm curious if it would have been an interracial couple. I'm curious if he still would have cast a black woman to be the opposite if, let's say, Steven Dorff was the Purple Haze character, and
Probably not. Probably not.
Right,
because that relationship was so complicated in and of itself. Why would you add another layer to it?
Yeah.
It was already complicated, and they were of the same race.
Right.
So.
But ultimately, I think it's just a sign of. It equates to me like when Gillian Anderson on the X-Files got pregnant, and they had to just completely work with it and turned it into something great. Because I think that if it's the other way around, this season's just not as interesting. I just can't see it being as interesting. I can't see it being as interesting without Mahershala being the lead. I can't see it as interesting without that subtext that went through it. Your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to judge because we've seen this, and we're obviously fans. Season 1 had 2 white guys, and then,
but that's my point. I mean, it's been done. It's
a white lead, But I mean, the white cop, the white cop genre is not going anywhere. It's not like we've cured it, or that it needed to be cured in any way. It could have been interesting. It wouldn't have been interesting on this level. I mean, the things that made this interesting would probably be the things that would make it interesting if it was Steven Dorff.
Yeah.
Obviously, watching that season, I big fan. Huge kudos to Maricela because of his. I mean, but for me, I already knew he was a brilliant actor. I already knew he could.
Yeah.
He had the chops to carry it off. I was really taken with Steven Dorff's performance because we watched Steven Dorff grow up.
Yeah.
We watched him. I mean, all the way from Back to the Gate where he was a kid.
Yeah.
We watched him, and he's a master thespian now. You know, I mean, that's probably one of his most dramatic roles. Also, the way he was able to make that shine with very little that they gave him. He was a heavy in a couple of scenes. He was he was the antagonist.
Sure.
He could easily have been the antagonist if you wanted to see it strictly from Purple's perspective.
Right.
At times where but he managed to pull it off to be antagonistic, but not unsympathetic in his own portrayal. And I think that was a breakout performance of this show. I don't think it would have been as good a show without the two of them.
No, of course not.
Say, neither of the three leads, the wife, Purple, or Stephen Dorff, neither of them could have been traded out.
Sure.
They all needed to be there. They all needed to do their parts. I think if it was Stephen Dorff, because we've seen that so often, because we've seen the cop with the case that he can't solve,
right,
and it becomes his obsession, they would have had to add something else to it, because on its face, all by itself, there wouldn't have been much to carry it.
Sure, I agree.
So from that perspective, I agree with you. I think when you make it Marsala, and then you add in his stoicness because of the war, and then you add in the racial element on top of it, and then his tension with his partner, I think that has a great three-dimensionality that makes it dramatically interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what you would need to do it from Stephen Dorff's perspective,
right?
But you would need to add something a little different to it.
Yeah, I think so.
But I think it could have pulled it off. I don't know. I like the season so much. I can't imagine it working without them.
Right.
But I'm sure, although we did see season 2, so there was definitely a way to mess it up. Definitely could have messed it up.
There's always a way to mess it up. All right, with that, we are going to wrap up our Secrets of the Sire special. Again, tune in Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is a February 27th date. If you guys are watching this on YouTube after the fact, go out and check our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Secrets of the Sire. Please subscribe. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/Secrets of the Sire as well, too. Help support us. We do our regular show every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We do some of these special streams whenever we feel inspired. And this Wednesday, we've got Deadpool co-creator Fabian Nicieza in studio with us live as we digest the Oscars and why Spider-Verse winning is actually a bigger deal than Black Panther.